Hello again, everybody. Welcome back. This is Joan Miller, artist. We're doing journal entry number 2 in our mixed media book. That was the previous one. Now we're going to do the second. I want to show you can just go in any direction. Taping down the edge of the coil again. I'm sorry my head is going to show up a few times in this video, and it's as abstract as my abstracts, but bear with me. So I'm getting out my pencils. If you watch the first one, you'll know that I like to begin my page with just making marks with the pencil crayon. I hold it at the very edge of the pencil crayon so that I cannot control and contrive anything. It's just happening intuitively. This is just to put marks on the page, and it's also to get into my zone. I have these very fat Stabilo Woodies. I love them, but unlike the pencil crayons, these are water soluble. They color on and they look like a pencil crayon, but they will be activated with water. But I like it because I'm putting thicker lines now than the previous lines. And I'm starting to add a pop of color. So I'm going to activate this with a spray bottle of water. You can definitely see that they are water soluble. Now I put a lot of water on there, so I'm going to dab some of it back. But before I do that, I'm using my finger to press down on it to force it to smudge a little. And that's thickening the lines and giving it more of a shadowy effect. I like that, even though this is mostly going to get covered up. It's a start. Again, this is just to get me into my zone and get me going. I decided to highlight a little more of the pink and the orange and activate it. Okay, maybe just the pink. Let's give that a good blow dry because that page was really wet. So now I've got a dry page. When I look at this, I think, oh my goodness, compared to the last one, what on earth is this? I'm going to put a complete layer of matte medium all over this page. The reason why I'm doing that is because the paper is very vulnerable and it can bleed through to the pages underneath. Also, if you put wet things on top, it could bubble. So I'm going to put a very healthy layer. I'm starting off gently, and I'm just doing the edges, but I'm painting that matte medium. If you saw the first video, you know that we use it as a glue, but we also use it to protect the page. So I'm gently painting it on because I don't want to press too hard or it will smear those two Stabilo Woody crayon marks. Now that I've got a lot of the crayon marks covered, and I've wiped off any smudge from it, I'm going to add another generous coating so I can go a little bit more happily over the page because those orange and pink thick lines have kind of been protected now. So this will make the entire page a little bit more able to take water and paint without bleeding through. And when I do subsequent layers, it will spread better than if it was on a dry page. So I'm just lightly dusting it now, feathering it in a way, and giving this a really, really, really good blow dry. Keep that blow dryer handy because we're going to be using it constantly. I've got green and blue up there for the paint colors, but I won't be using them. So I'm trying to show you close up what that looks like, but it wasn't very effective. So I'm putting the plastic sheet behind because I know we're going to start painting now. I really, really enjoy using yellow with red and pink and orange. So those will be my colors. That yellow I have there is Indian yellow. I absolutely adore Indian yellow. It's just a beautiful, rich Indian yellow color. I'm going to start off spraying with water because I want to show you different techniques from the previous video. I want to show you the fun you can have by wetting the page and then adding ink. I love using this long brushed fine brush because it holds a lot of paint. And because it's long, and I'm going to hold it on the tip of the brush handle, you're able to do very intuitive, swirly dab marks on the page. Again, I don't want to control anything. I'm trying to show you, you do not need to know how to draw to do this art. If I could say one thing only, that would be the lesson I'm trying to give you, is that almost anybody could do this. Now that's going on pretty bright. I'm going to add my favorite Quinacridone, or I'll leave it in the list, but the orange that I absolutely love. I'm going to add that. And again, I'm showing you different techniques each time. I hope that I show you new layers of techniques that you can build on, so that eventually when your book gets well on its way, you don't need me. You'll be able to do whatever you like. So I didn't want that to stay as just dots, but it was a good way of helping it spread around the page. So see how fun that brush is to use? But eventually I always end up getting my fingers out and using them. So there is a lot of water on the page. I'm using that to help spread the colors around. Again, this is, at this point, I don't even have a clue where we're going with this page. It's just putting it on. This is an underpainting. It's just a start. So I wasn't too happy with how that fine brush spread things, so I will end up helping it along with my fingers. Again, if you can see that by using a brush, it forces it to create paint strokes, and I didn't want that. I want this underpainting to be a bunch of smudges of colors. Let's get that red out, and when you add the red, because it's quite transparent, if you add it with a lot of water, it becomes very pink. And it is in the cool pink family anyway, that color. But I love these high flow acrylics, these transparent ones, because they are transparent. They're good with this color range here, this color palette. That they're complementary, and because they're quite transparent, they blend together and create new colors. Now you're thinking this looks like one big happy mess, but it will change. And I'm making a big mess behind me there, so I'm trying to be good and wipe it off as I go. That yellow was so bright, I want to use this deeper one. And there's my fingers, my favorite paintbrush. What I'm trying to do here is blend some of that with that bright yellow that I didn't like being so bright. You can see I put paper towel down, but very slightly dabbed it. I'm only trying to get a little bit off. Again, you're going to look at this and think, what a mess. But it isn't a mess. It's just one of the layers. And you can't get where we're going later without doing this at the beginning. So have faith, put away your fears, and follow along, because you'll see the happy results. I'm giving it a good blow dry. And again, when I use the blow dryer on still wet paint, I love how it branches it out and feathers it around the page. I encourage that with the blow dryer. Still a little bit more. It was quite wet, so still more of those wet paints branched around. I'm trying to think at this point what I'm going to use for printed. These are the tissue papers I printed, and I will show you in the next video. I love this feather one, and if you watched my first video, you'll know that the magic happens when you put the tissue over. I like that one because it picks up, the actual feather part picks up the color underneath. But no matter what I pulled out and tried and looked at, I mean, I love that one too, but I'm deciding, again, it doesn't hurt to take them all out and place them. It's just tissue. Look what that one does. I mean, all of these are doable. And I'm trying to show you that even though they're not necessarily what I chose, it shows you what you can pick. You can take this in whatever direction you feel like. But I'm deciding that if I do use that white feather there, I need a lot stronger and deeper colors in the background for it to really pop. So I'm going to bring out another color. It's still in our family here of orange. It's an actual acrylic ink. I'm putting that down, spreading it around intuitively again. Just love this orange. It's just beautiful. You can already see how this is darkening the depth of color. What I'm also figuring out as I do this is I don't want any, because those tissue papers I put over there all have a lot of white detail in them, I don't need any white background in this underpainting. So I'm just going to keep adding paint to make it a deeper background and to get rid of that white. Adding a little more yellow. But there's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just putting it down. There go the fingers. Let's cut to the chase and just use the fingers. I don't have much clothing that doesn't have paint on it because I just have to get messy. Yeah, so what you're seeing there is me getting rid of a lot of the white. That's enough of that orange. I'm going to give that a good blow dry before, and again, I cut the blow drying session short so you don't have to go through the ordeal of watching how long it took to blow dry. Sometimes it's about 5 minutes of blow drying between each layer, so I'm saving you the agony. So you can see the difference already by adding more depth of color below. In that case, it didn't show you much because there was pink on the background of that print, but every time I place, I quite like that one. I like that there's white and pink in it. And because I've already got pink in my family of colors on this page, that could work. This is where the magic starts, people. This is where the first part of the magic happens, putting tissue prints on and seeing how it completely alters and morphs this page into something which you couldn't even plan. You couldn't even think of painting those details on. But when you've got it as a printed tissue over top, bingo, there's the magic. So I know I've already decided which page I'm going to use, so I'm going to put a healthy layer of what I call my glue, the fluid matte medium. I'm putting it everywhere because I've decided I'm going to use that whole sheet instead of part of it. I'm going to put the whole sheet down. So I need to get glue in every spot, otherwise the tissue will bubble later. So I love this one with the muted pink. The sort of the shady, it almost looks chalk-like, the pink and the white. I'm dabbing it with my hands to keep it in place because, as you know from the first video, once we paint with the paintbrush, that matte medium, it spreads that tissue if you don't do it, if you don't have it in place. Oh, that paintbrush had a little yellow on there, but that's okay. So I'm always fanning it out from the center to the edges so that I don't ripple or fold or press or smudge or move that tissue paper. And I'm doing it still fairly gently so I don't push. And as I said in the first video, when you use this fluid acrylic medium over top the tissue, it's dampening it and it's allowing the tissue paper to disappear and blend into the background. And you can see how it's enriching the color and allowing that to show through. But you've got to start off gentle so that you don't push the tissue paper around. Look at how that just transformed it. So I've still got it in my head. I'm going to use the stencil that I had printed onto the tissue with the feather. So what I'm doing is I'm tearing around the outside edge of it so I can get a better idea. I'm placing that over, but again, it's not written in stone. I'm just getting an idea, and I find that very, very busy. So if I indeed want to continue using that feather, I need darker and less busy background. So I thought, oh, I could put some of these printed tissues over and see if I could make it less busy. Or I could just put that down and just start collaging in patches. And that's what I've decided I'm going to do. If I do use that feather, I do want a stronger color of pink underneath it. So let's put that down and see how that works. Again, it gets more colorful as we put the tissue, the matte medium down. and it enhances that color that shows through. You might be thinking, whoa, I didn't have the guts to do that, but again, this is just paper. It's just playing for your soul, so be brave. Just have fun. When I did my tissue stenciling, I had leftover bits that I dabbed on the panels of the gel plate, and I thought I'll keep those tissues because they could be used as a border. And they're very faint and subtle, and I just thought that would look really nice at the top there. Instead of being a really bold pattern, it's just very subtle, as you will soon see. Look how amazing this is getting transformed. I'm starting to really enjoy what's being revealed. That's my big word in my technique, is the big reveal. Again, I wouldn't have thought of painting all those swirly orange lines everywhere, but they just pick up because of the pattern from the stencil and the color that was underneath. I hope you like this. I hope this inspires you. Because it's in my soul journal, I like to keep the effect fairly gentle and not very jarring. My real abstracts that I put on canvas, on walls, and in galleries, and that I sell are way bolder. I don't normally, no, sometimes I've done subtle. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe. It encourages me to give you more lessons. I love doing this. I'm happy to pay it forward and show you what I've learned. So I like what's happening already. I cut it short, but I did cut the tissue edges so that you could see. They were getting in the way, and I wanted you to see the page nice and clean. So I've still got it in my head. Am I going to use that feather? And if I do, I decided what would go with it, and with all the background effect, might look nice to have butterflies there. I'm liking the patterns. That's what I'm pointing to. I'm liking what's happening there. I still haven't decided for sure 100% what I'm doing, but I do know if I do put that feather over top, I still need more solid background. So I'm putting a lot of water on here with a fatter brush. I want to bring out that pink. I want that bottom right area to be very dark if I'm going to put that feather over top. Look what happens if you use a lot of water and then you dab on ink. I keep calling it ink. That's high flow acrylic. But ink would do the same thing. And what I want to do is spread it around so it reaches the corner. I'm grabbing something thicker to prop underneath the book so that it'll force that water to run down to the bottom and not into the page. While it's still very, very wet, I'm adding some of my favorite orange. And I don't mind that they're blending, like partly they're individual colors and partly they're blending, and I just love that. I'm encouraging it to reach some of the areas. I don't want it to do too much on the left because I've got that beautiful swirly, scrolly pattern that I want to keep. But the whole idea here is to put some color in that bottom right quadrant, because that's where the bulk of the feather will be sitting. And I decided I'm going to bring the eye. When you watch my videos, you'll know that I like to balance things. So I want to bring that color up to the corner. I'm all about giving a journey when you look at my art. So I like the eye to travel around the page. And sometimes you've got to force it to go around the page, either by color or pattern or shapes. So I've added a lot more. There's quite a bit of red there, but it's going to dry a little lighter. But as you can see, it did lighten up a little bit. It's very heavy in the pink in the bottom right, but again, I'm going to put a tissue print over there, so some of that will be subdued. So I'm going to use these butterflies, and I'm looking to see about how they will balance with that feather. But when I did this, I'm looking and I'm thinking, you know, that feather is still fighting with that bottom left detail. It's just a little too busy. I'm not too sure. So I'm bringing out these stencils of what look like funky roses, and that one has swirls. But I find that's almost, that I might use it, but that looks a little busy. I'm really quite loving these funky roses. They really, really gently go with the rest of the page. This is another one of my favorite stencils. So what I'm doing is tearing around roughly so that it's not a cut edge of the tissue. I'm going around those two of those roses so I get an idea. Again, I haven't glued anything down yet, so I can make decisions. I'm tearing a little more away just to make sure that I get a good decision here, roses or feather. I quite like that as it is. I've decided no way am I going to do the feather. This just has, again, for my soul journal, this just has such a happy, gentle feel that that's what I'm going to go with. But before I put that down, I'm going to print those, the butterflies. Again, because it's a sepia brown color, it'll be subtle. I didn't want it to be jarring. And that brown actually, because it's not too dark, it kind of ties the eye from the butterflies over to the bottom left detail. I'm using a fixative spray on them because that stamp might smudge if I do my magic with the matte medium. So I want to spray it with a fixative and then blow that dry before I do anything else. If in doubt, dry it and spray it. So let's bring the magic on. This is yet again another layer of tissue, but I don't know. Again, I'm not asking you to go out and buy these stencils that I'm using. I will give you a list if I can find the name of that one. I will definitely put it in the description below, but I'm trying to show you the different options. In my previous video, I did funky stencils. This one's more flowy and girly, if you will, and flowery, which isn't always what I do. But I'm trying to show you that there are all sorts of options, and it depends on what you've got. Use the supplies you have. It's just a soul journal. It's just paper. But oh man, that stencil is so complementary to the scrolly swirls on the left. And it's complementary to the butterflies because they like flowers. So to me, this is turning into a very happy page for my soul. I'm really in the zone and really, really loving this. And I couldn't pick a better combination of colors that make me feel gentle and calm. Let's give that a good blow dry. It's really taking shape. But wait to see. So the first magic, I always call my magic techniques 2 stages. The first stage is putting the tissues down, and where it pops it becomes a completely different thing. The second part of magic that I love so much in this last half of the stage is where I touch things up and I let the stencil pattern tell me what needs to be revealed. And this is kind of what I call the enhancing stage. So I wanted a little more yellow in the top right because I've got quite a bit of yellow down in the bottom, and I want to draw the eye across. Now that's coming a little bit bright, but as I smudge it with my finger, you'll see once that yellow hits, in this case I don't mind it going over top of what was there before because the two colors, the pink and the yellow, become an orange. So this all becomes very complementary. See how the eye can move around the page now, looking at the bottom left and the top right, and then with yellows, and the top left and bottom right with pink. So now this is where I get into a true mindfulness zone. I'm just not thinking about anything except letting that stencil pattern tell me what wants to pop. So this is one of the tricks I said in my first video, and I'll say it many, many times, in enhancing the background like I am doing right now in between the white lines of the detail. Enhancing that background color makes the white flower lines pop forward. And with my abstracts, as I have said, and I'll say it many times, I like to create illusion and create layers and depth. Notice already, and I've only begun, notice how it's making everything pop. It's making the background go into the back and the flower pop forward. This is just so much fun play for me. I mean, to me, this is as effective as meditating. That's what I want to teach you. Look what we've done here, and I have not drawn a single line. You don't have to be an artist. All you have to do is start learning to get an eye for what could be revealed. And again, if you watch all my lessons, I'm going to teach you in layers, and eventually you'll develop your own eye for what needs to happen. I want this to just be organic. If I was to paint perfectly within each line and do the one flower all orange and the other all solid pink and do everything totally perfect, that's not what I would like. I like things to change and morph. So if you zoom in on this, you'll be able to see that some of that orange blends in with some of the pink, and I'll even help it along by smudging so that everything's taking a journey. It's leaving you the ability to use your imagination to take a journey. Oh, this gives me so much pleasure. I'm dabbing it so that it's even more subtle. I didn't want it to pop too much because I've got a lot of pink popping up there, and if I do too much uniformity of depth of color everywhere, it won't pop anymore. It won't shift and change. And my abstracts are all about shifting and changing and movement. So I've decided to get the pink out and do the bottom right more pink because that'll balance with the top left of the painting. And I use the finger. I've decided in the first one, I stayed within and I didn't touch the white lines, so they remained white. But in this case, I don't want white going right to the corner of the page. I want that to change from dark pink and white to a light pink. So I quite like that. Again, I broke the rules. Who says you've got to paint it all the same? I really like that white outline of the funky rose on the right one changes from white lines to baby pink lines for the lining of the flower. And it's a very smudgy pink background, so it's giving a more chalky look. So I'm purposely putting a bit of pink there and rubbing it towards the previous orange so that it blends and becomes a third color. I love the softness of that. I don't want strong, popping, rigid patches of color. I want this all to be very fluid and smudgy and chalky. Look at how we've transformed that page. Who'd have thought when I first started putting that stuff down and activating the colors that we'd end up where we are. Again, when I do these pieces, I have no idea what direction I'm going. And so it's always a happy surprise at the end. I mean, I never sat down, put my supplies on the table and said, oh, I'm going to do a funky flower or a butterfly painting. I mean, I had no clue. And because I want to create movement and the eye to wander and travel and move, I'm just going back over a few spots that I want to bring out darker. But I do not want that dark raspberry pink color to go right to the bottom right corner. I want it to fade away. So in doing this away from the corner, more towards the center, it draws the eye from the corner back to the center of the page when the painting is being viewed. I just think this is so fun. So I'm going to pick up a few of the tiny details where it gets miniature there in the middle, because the effect is giving small patches of detail. So it's a pattern. issue. It's just like in my first lesson, instead of doing this in my first lesson, what I did was I splattered small splatters of strong color, and that forced the eye to move around the page. In this case, I'm doing it with this technique. I don't want every page of my art journal to look like the same technique. I like that later on when I open up each page, it's a completely different journey. Because I've got so much strength of color in the right, now I need to do the same thing on the left. So I love, love, love that scrolly pattern that I'm highlighting now. I mean, those swirls and scrolls, I'm bringing those forward with the orange. And in doing so, I hope you can see already on your own that doing those strong but fine lines draws the eye over and balances it with the fine lines and strong color of the butterflies. So again, I mean, I'm moving the eye around the page, but every time you land in a spot that it brought you to, you're seeing a different pattern, a different technique. And again, I'm not going too much at the corner edge of the pages. I'm sort of sticking towards, again, drawing the eye back towards the middle. I didn't like what was happening there, so I had to dampen it and remove it and do it again. I've decided as well that I want to put more of that color because it is my favorite color, and because there's so much strong raspberry in there, I want to balance. And this is a balance. It's matching the intensity of the pink by adding stronger layers of the orange, so that they, if you look at the page now in general, the orange and the pink colors are a similar weight of color. And again, smudging. I didn't mind that some of that orange went into the white lines of the right flower. Again, that means that the flower lines are shifting and changing with color. And because I love that scroll pattern so much, and there's nothing drawing the eye to the top left corner, I am forcing the eye now to go up there. So I'm getting to the edge where the pattern showed, and then I'm just creating, because the pattern disappears right about there. So what I'm doing is I'm just following that line up there. I'll continue that in a minute, but I'm following that line and continuing with the theme of the scrolly shape. I love the power of what this has done now to the left side of the page. And there I go. This is the only part where I'm not even drawing and creating anything new. I just kind of let it stop and brought a little more depth of color. Now I'm just following sort of where that scrolly line would continue, but I'm doing dots instead. Again, adding more pattern, but complementary color. And what I'm doing is, when you zoom in, you'll be able to see that the dots are getting slightly bigger as they go towards the edge of that top page. And because I like uneven numbers, and there were 5 there and I want to add more, I have to add an extra little dot and then a 7th bigger one. I almost always do things like that with uneven numbers. I only did 2 butterflies, but because that scrolly detail on the left, that becomes the 3rd detail. And I do have 2 roses, but that's okay. They blend in so well. I didn't need 3 of those. At this point, I'm looking in my stencils to see, I would like to do a word, because that top left area, I purposely left that fairly free so that I could add a word like peace or love. I'm looking through my supplies. I found a stamp there that said peace, and it's got a very similar complementary scroll, but I just find that breaks it up and that becomes something different. And all those other wordings are too fine, they're too small. Even these ones, I don't want to use them because I don't want to do a big patch of a bar of color with the word revealing. So I'm just trying to show you that what I'm thinking is if I had tissue paper now with the word grateful or peace or love printed on it, I would have used that. Since I don't have anything, I took my gel pen out and I'm writing the word peace. So this is finished. I really, really, really enjoy looking at this. It just makes me feel happy. I look forward to working more on the journal book with you. I'll see you at the next one, people. Have a good day.